I'm live. A little under the weather, but I figure do this for a few minutes, see how it goes. If it goes well, I'll stay on longer. Just had to clean the camera. Today is Ask Me Anything format. um, I still have some overdue scheduled live streams. I will do those this weekend, and one of them I may have to cancel, which is my update with Micah. She seems to be constantly, having uh, a bit of bad luck. So I haven't been able to stay in touch with her as much as I want to. We touch base every once in a blue moon, but not really enough for her to go live with me because I wanted to last month, have her come go live with me again just to give you guys an update, let you know that she received those generous donations. And although I wish I could have gave her more, um, you know, it is I'm happy that people were able to give her anything. So you know, plus I wanted to just verify that I actually did give her the money, that I didn't use it myself just to you know buy collectibles and fruit snacks. I do that with my own money. I don't do that with other people's. But yeah, she did receive it. But unfortunately, she hasn't been able to come on to do that. So I figured if by this weekend she's not available to do it, I'm just gonna cancel that live stream, which was a month. It's now a month overdue. Well, it will be a month overdue this weekend. So, and then I have a fun live stream where I'm going to show you guys all my collectibles. Some people who've been rocking with me for the past 2 years, they seen my collectibles. Others haven't seen them, and I've added newer stuff since then. Anyway, plus I have them all concentrated in my little toy chest here, a little storage bin I'm using as my makeshift toy chest. So I will show those plus the ones that are like around my room, my little uh my little man cave where I am right here. Um, and I have a few things overseas, but mm, I I'm thinking of whether I will have my wife come in and help me show those off. I might do that if she can find it, because once we moved from our condo to the house, she boxed all that stuff up and hasn't taken it out yet. So once I'm back there, I'm probably gonna arrange all my collectibles in a way that I like. Until then, she's just kind of kept everything boxed up for me. Um, I hope I made this a live. I mean, this live stream public. Now I'm gonna face the same issues I did 2 weeks ago. Let me check on my other. Let me check on my PC whether I was smart enough to fix that like I had to fix my last one. Because I might have forgotten. Hopefully I didn't. Give me a chance to check. Oh no, it's yep. That's why this wasn't public. Oops. All right, now it's public, so hopefully people will be coming into the stream. My bad. I keep doing that. Um, See, I have it. I, I've had this optimized for my long form videos instead of my live streams, and that's why it was going to unlisted instead of public. So hopefully you guys can see it. If not, that's my mistake. But I won't stay on here if people can't see it, because in Ask Me Anything format, I need people to, well, ask me something. There we go. So the chat room look like it's open. What's up to people coming into the chat room? So my day is well, it's the end of the day now, but it went pretty well except for a minor heat injury. So I've had some muscle cramping all day long, well, all evening. Did my usual distance run, did my little trek um, to the store. That's why you notice my voice is a little hoarse. But what's up to everyone coming in the chat room? So this is called my Ask Me Anything format. So you guys can ask me anything as long as it's family friendly. Family friendly. You know, any sort of family friendly questions I'll take. And not to say that I know everything, but I'm willing to, take up any topic as long as it's family friendly. Favorite color? Uh, don't really have one. I would say probably black though. If I had, like, if you pressed me on a color, I would say black, but I really don't have a favorite color. Um, but yeah, so I do this. I try to do these once a week, or at least once every couple of weeks. I do a ask me anything format where people in the chat room, can feel free to ask me questions. As long as it's family friendly, and it works the best when people know my background, so they know what sort of stuff I can talk of, like talk intelligently on. What advice would you go back and give yourself at 18 years old? Uh, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of things. I would say don't pursue girls. Um, where was I 18? Well, I already, yeah, at 18, I'd already started college. Um, yeah, I would say don't ignore pursuing girls. Um, go to work at Starbucks and start drinking coffee. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was 24. I lied to you not. What, was it 24 or 25? Uh, I think 20. Yeah, 24. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was 24. I applied to Starbucks when I was like 19, and I didn't get the job because they asked me, do I drink coffee? I said no, but I was being honest. So, but what sucked was back then, even for part-time employees, they gave them stock options. Imagine having stock options back in 1996 for Starbucks. Someone said I should have told myself to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. Bitcoin wasn't around, and well, if you're talking about when I was 18, I mean, Bitcoin didn't exist then. There was no cryptocurrency. Um, what else at 18? Because like I said, ignore girls, work at Starbucks, um, start start training in combat sports early. So started waiting until I was in my 20s. Uh, uh, um, Probably I would have joined the army then instead of waiting until I was 20. Well, it was only 2 years later, but I would have joined then, joined at 18 instead of joining at 20. So yeah, I guess join the army earlier, ignore girls, um, try out in combat sports at that age instead of waiting until my 20s, work at Starbucks so I could get the stock options, which I would have kept till now and would have been, doing well. um, yeah. Why ignore pursuing girls? Because it was a wasteful endeavor. It was a waste of energy. Energy that could have been put towards making money, hitting the gym, um, doubling up my college credits. Like instead of just doing the bare minimum, instead of just taking 12, 13 credits, I should have been taking 15, 16 credits, 17 maybe. Um, yeah, if I had been um, more about school, um, more about martial arts, not worrying about being a nerd, I'd probably be better off. So yeah, I would tell myself to ignore girls then, because none of them I was with now are the ones I ended up with. I am happily married though, by the way now, but that's someone whom I met as an adult when I was 39. So, um, but yeah, but I what else? I mean, it's always looking back in hindsight, you always can say, "Oh, I wish I did this and I wish I did that." So it, it seems a sometimes it seems like a fruitless endeavor just because there's always like almost an infinite amount of things you could have done differently, depending on your circumstances. Also, I would have said I would have got serious with my PKU treatment back then earlier on instead of waiting until I was in my late 20s to resume my PKU treatment. But back then, I really knew nothing about it, so that would have been something to do. Gotten rid of my ulcer earlier at 18 instead of 21. So um, probably finished my well, I didn't finish my 2 year degree before I transferred off to a university, but I'm wondering if I should have done that in total before transferring. Well, if I had been more serious about school, I could have. So yeah, I guess so. What? But yeah, so um, like I said, guys, this is Ask Me Anything Friday. So feel free to ask me any sort of questions, as long as they are family friendly, appropriate. So, um, hmm, do we have any other questions? And also, I should say, like I said, uh, well, as I was about to say a few moments ago, it goes best when people actually know what I have the most knowledge in. So, I'm knowledgeable about nerdy things like comic books, especially Batman, um, sci-fi, especially Star Wars and Star Trek. Although some Trekkies are way, way more in depth than I am, but um, nerdy stuff in general, comic books and Batman, sci-fi, particularly Star Wars and Star Trek, martial arts, science, particularly psychology and linguistics, philosophy, particularly 20th century analytic philosophy. What else? A little bit on history, a little bit. particularly American history. um, Anime, although I'm not like one of those weebs that can deep dive into stuff like, you know, there's some weeaboos out there that can just deep dive into anime like nobody's business. I'm not I'm not that bad with it, but I know a little bit about anime. uh, Sports, you're gonna catch me at a loss at that. So if questions are around sports, you're gonna lose me. Um, what in the world? Oh, I was say I guess my TV was possessed. um, 28 years later. I don't know if this is gonna be any good. I'm looking at my Netflix. Sorry. Uh, but yeah, you guys have other questions? Let me check my chat filter here. Yep. So on all messages. But like I said, you guys can ask me any questions. I want to say family friendly. Like I said, my my weak uh where I'm weakest in information would be things like sports and sports, firearms for the 2A bros out there. I mean, I like firearms, but I'm not a expert in them. I have a friend who's an expert in them. I will leave questions about stuff like that to him. I'm always asking him questions about when it comes to firearms, like stuff going on with the Sig Sauer guns and stuff like that. And but yeah, um, oh, traveling. I know a little bit about traveling and getting a good deal when you travel. Uh, yeah, but I, I guess that's the gist of it. Oh, let me think. What else? Know about you know a little bit about classic literature, typically, well, English literature. Uh, and just a cornucopia of random information. Like that's why I said you can just ask me anything, and I might know a little bit about it, may know a lot about it, or may know nothing about it. We'll see. Depends on the question. Also, I'm not here as a therapist, so I, some people are aware that I do have a background in cognitive science and psychology and behavioral science in general. But um, outside of having that background in the behavioral and cognitive sciences, I am not a therapist, not licensed. I'm not licensed, I'm not board certified, not trained in that particularly, although I have some training in it. So I'm not here to be an online therapist either. So, but yeah, like I said, outside of ask me anything, as long as it's family friendly and as long as you don't expect me to be a therapist, I'm all good with that. Um, so Brother Spitter says if I am splitting my motorcycle and a car is changing lanes and hits me, who is at fault? I don't know what splitting the motorcycle means. You mean you're splitting lanes? I'm not I'm confused on that. So I'm already beyond the front of the car, huh? I'm sorry, I'm not get splitting the motorcycle. Are you is part of the motorcycle is the motorcycle perpendicular to the car or is it adjacent to it? I don't get it. So again, that's one of my weaknesses. I'm not a um, race car buff. So, what car do you drive? I have model zero, year zero. Because I'm in the midst of moving overseas, I no longer have a vehicle. So I plan on buying one overseas where it makes more sense because it, I was going to get one here, like go to do the whole Carfax thing, and it was a waste of money because, especially at my job, I just saw it seemed like a lot of people were spending like half their income on their vehicle. And then if anything happened to the car, then like they were pretty much SOL. So it was like, obviously not a high paying job, right? But yeah. But when I managed this call center, team leader, whatever, um, eh. Whereas overseas, I did have in my own office, um, which I was running, but that didn't last once I came back here. So I plan on going back there and opening up another office. I tried doing it virtually, but that had um, moderate results. It was better when when I was doing the virtual office during the pandemic era. Now that we're post pandemic, the virtual office doesn't really work. Um, Captain Sano says coffee secret instead of using regular coffee cream, use evaporated milk. Game changer for your coffee, sir. Um, so I have again coffee I make here and coffee I make back overseas in the Philippines. Here I keep it pretty simple. Um, I'll either use my cold brew or I Ethan, thank you for the super chat, brother. But unfortunately, I am both straight and married, so that won't be possible. Um, but I appreciate the shout out and the $5 super chat. Appreciate that a lot. Thank you again. Feel free to ask me other questions though. But yeah, I'm not I'm not I'm not gay, and I'm happily married. 8 years now to my wife. So sorry. Also, I think people straight men actually a lesbian. Well, I think she was bisexual. Whatever. She had those cheeks, but yeah, I remember a long time ago. This chick told me she was really beautiful too. Not gonna lie, she was like, if a straight man, is hit on by a gay guy, they should take it as a compliment because it's like because they were saying gay guys have really um, refined taste when it comes to how they like their men. So she was like, so if they think you are attractive, that means that she was like that means you're probably a good looking brother. I'm like, oh okay. I think she was trying to give me a compliment without giving me a compliment. Because she had a man at the time, but she also did her thing. Apparently, I guess he was all right with her doing her thing. So that was their situation, but I would not approve. Let me get back to the other comments. Sorry, but I always put a premium. Like I always go directly to any super chat that I get first. Papa Doma says spread positivity. I mean, I well, as you can see from the title of my channel, Just A Contrarian, not everything I spread is positive, but I myself try to be positive. Um, I can so I can give bad news while myself being positive. I know that's not a nuance that everyone can handle, but yeah, I try to remain positive. And although I may give negative information sometimes, I don't mean that as a way to make people feel depressed or dour. I just, I'm just a realist and will tell people how I find things. But I still believe that people should be positive because it's better for your mental well-being and it helps you in your social life better. No one wants to be walking around someone who's acting like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. um, oh yeah, back to the coffee thing about Captain Insano. Um, so yeah, here, like I said, I usually make my coffee one of two ways, like either in my cold brew bottle that I stick in the refrigerator overnight, or if I want it hot, um, I use the what you call those machines, or a K, the Keurig machine, and I keep it pretty simple. I just put usually French vanilla creamer. I usually use French vanilla creamer. I know that's basic, or maybe caramel, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon in it. But I prefer iced coffee. So whether I'm using my cold brew or the Keurig machine, or um, I've tried it old school with like just um, boiling a pot of hot water, then steeping it in I don't know, whatever you call those little things that you put in, and then you put coffee the coffee filter, then just pour it in. So I guess, yeah, I'm sorry. So that's three ways I make coffee here. But either way, I always make iced coffee, and I don't really do too much. I just add. I love creamer because it's sweet. I like my coffee to be sweet because I usually drink it early in the morning, right before I start my day, before I start my workout in the morning. And I don't want anything that's going to be hyper acidic on my stomach as when I go out to run in the morning, because that, so I don't drink black coffee. If I do, it's usually later in the day, but it's still iced because the ice takes bitter the bitterness away from black coffee. Now overseas, I have a trick because they love the instant Nescafe in the Philippines. And so what I would do, because when I tried it by itself, I was like, this is too weak. I was like, this barely has any coffee in it. I was like, it's mostly sugar. It's just mostly sugar and cream. So what I did, I took the Nescafe coffee and added it to my brewed coffee. I use a old fashioned coffee brewer back in the Philippines. So I will add the Nescafe because it's so freaking sweet. Then drop a little bit of creamer in it and sugar, and then uh, I'll add that. I'll put all of that in a blender and blend it with ice to make it into like a coffee smoothie. So that's how I usually. That's my secret how I make my coffee overseas. I either make it into a really sweet iced coffee, but it's strong because when I'm overseas, I'm working overnight to make up for my hours here in America. So I need strong coffee. So like I said, I'll take the instant Nescafe, dump it into the into the percolated coffee, then add a little bit of creamer and like a teaspoon of sugar and pour it over iced coffee. Or I'll take both the ice and the coffee blend that I just made and put it in a blender and turn it into like a smoothie. So that's my secret. And I should charge you money for giving you my Philippine coffee secret. um, Roblox says, "Man, if I lived close in your town, I would have got you a Lambo." How did you know that was my favorite vehicle? I, I guess that's just a coincidence. Lamborghinis are literally my favorite vehicle. Like that is my dream vehicle. Like if I hit the Powerball, I'm getting a Lambo. But I would get the Lambo when I get overseas because I'm not paying to ship that to the Philippines. Uh-uh. Because trust me, if I hit the Powerball, I'm flying overseas immediately, and I'm gonna buy that and get my Harley Davidson. That's my other vehicle that I want. A Harley Davidson. I don't know which model yet, but assuming that I'm not going to hit the lottery, I would get just a Nightster. Lamborghinis, I don't know enough about the models to say which one I would get, other than I want it in black, and that's pretty much just because of the Dark Knight. Every time he got something, he's like, "Does it come in black?" So yeah, uh, that's why I said black is sort of my favorite color, but only if you press me on colors. Captain, that sounds a super cheap, worth trying one day, Mister. Um, no, I mean I've had I've used I have used evaporated milk in my coffee before. Trust me. Like when I've if I didn't have regular milk, I used evaporated milk and then added sugar and cinnamon. Really good. I've tried evaporated milk. Trust me, but um, I was gonna say about that. Yeah, like so again, referencing the Philippines. So they don't have like chilled milk over there because most people don't drink milk there. In most Asian countries, they're lactose intolerant for one, and two, it's not a cultural thing to drink uh, cow's milk. So when I'm in the grocery store over there, they have milk, but it's in like the containers for like you would get for like soy milk. You know how like in the soy milk comes in like the little boxes, and it's not chilled until you put it till you open it. Then you're supposed to refrigerate it. So same thing with milk there. So usually when I because I still buy milk when I'm over there because I'm a milk drinker. I'm from the Midwest. Us Midwest boys, we drink milk. So um, my wife knows. Let me stop. Let me stop. I don't want to get myself in trouble. But yeah, so yeah, they have like the box milk, which is I think the box milk is pretty similar to evaporated milk. Someone can tell me if that's right or not. But yeah, the box milk they sell overseas, since they don't sell it chilled in like a carton or bottles like they do here, they put it in the boxes like you will find like the soy milk or rice milk, stuff like that. And so I don't. It's only when I get home then I stick it in the fridge. But it they don't come refrigerated in the grocery stores over there. So I'm thinking that is evaporated milk, but I'm not sure. Someone can tell me if they think that that's what it is. Someone said I look like Frozone. I mean, Frozone wasn't ugly though, so and he was a cartoon. And trust me, I would love to have his superpowers. I mean, cold powers aren't my favorite, because he was basically like a black version of Iceman. But hey, if I, I'll take those superpowers. I don't think I look like him. Plus, how do I look like a cartoon character? uh, Matt says, "Good afternoon. You must be overseas, brother." It's um inching towards midnight here. What's up, Eric? He's at 1968 Dodge. That yeah, okay, that's a good one. 1968 Dodge Charger, the same car Blade drives. I'm going to get it one day, bro. You're gonna get your Dodge Charger, and I'm going to get my Harley Davidson. I don't know if I'm going to get the Lamborghini, but I'm going to get the Harley Davidson. Trust and believe. I will get the Harley Davidson. I already got my leather bomber jacket for it. So yeah, my brother-in-law he drives a motorcycle, and I was telling him I wanted to get a Harley Davidson Nightster. He was like, can I drive it? I was like, yeah, just don't crash it. He's like, all right. He said, well, don't worry about that. I'm a pro. I'm like, all right, if you say so. So you're gonna get your 1968 Dodge Charger. I'm gonna get my Harley Davidson. So Messes. I'm so happy. I just hate 34 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I didn't know you had a YouTube channel. So everyone, when you get a chance, subscribe to Matt Owen's channel. He only has 34 subscribers. Let's drive that up to let's get that up at least to 100. Okay, let's get that up at least to 100. That's a good start. Once he gets to 100, he can start doing his own live streams. Actually, no, I think you can do it at 50. No, is it 50? No, I think it does have to be 100, something like that. But that's I'm sure once he gets up to 100, he'll be good. What's up, Moonlit? He says, nice Eric minus. He said, mine's the old box Chevy, but Jaguars are my favorite. I think a Phantom from like 1957. It's black, huge nose, looks like a Dick Tracy car. I don't know what the Dick Tracy car looks like. For some reason, I'm thinking the Dick Tracy car looks like the old original Batmobile from like the 40s. Is that am I wrong? Because I don't remember what the Dick Tracy car looks like from the old the old comic books. I'm thinking the Dick Tracy car looks a lot like the old fashioned Batmobile from the 40s, except without the part on it with the bat um the bat face on the front of the car. Wait, oh, you're welcome, Masses. Thank you. What's up, Kylie? Uh, Tyler says Jesus loves you. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Moment says, yeah, like around the era. Yeah, he said, yeah, you're right, but it's kind of yellow. That's what I thought. Did it look sort of like the Batmobile, but just without the logo on the front of the car? I don't remember. So I didn't actually see the old Dick Tracy stuff until the movie came. The movie came out in 1990, and when the movie came out in 1990, they re-released the old cartoons made by the Max Fleischer. Like those old Max Fleischer cartoons, like Betty Boop and stuff like that. Like he was the one that, and I think he did the old Superman stuff. So they had brought back the old Dick Tracy cartoons in 1990, and I can tell you now, you could not get away with watching showing the night that cartoon from the 40s today. It was so much it was so much racist stuff in that cartoon. You could not get away with it. I thought it was funny, but yeah, that stuff was bad. Eric says those 1980 cars all look the same to me, Bonnie and Clyde type of car. Yeah. Well, I actually like the 80s cars. It's the it's the stuff that came out in the 2010s that looked all the same to me. Everything that came out in like the 2000s, 2010s, no, especially the 2010s, especially everything that came out in the 2010s till now, they all look the same. Like it's like you'd be like if you wanted to stand out, you would be better off getting the body of a car from like the 60s and 70s and then just on the inside of the vehicle making it uh, a modern contemporary car. But if you could give it like the body of a car from the 60s and 70s, like that would be great. Because I think isn't that what Vin Diesel did with his car in Fast and the Furious, like his Dodge. I think that was a Challenger, right? Or was it a Charger? Like the inside of his vehicle was completely tricked out in like a modern car, but on the outside it looked like something from the 70s. I wouldn't mind having a muscle car like that too. I like aside from having a Lamborghini, I wouldn't mind an American muscle car. The only thing is I don't know which would be my favorite. A Mustang, Charger, Challenger. Then a lot of the ones in the 80s are no longer around, like the Thunderbird, Pontiac Grand Am, the Firebird, all that sort of stuff. I think my father he had a muscle car. He used to he must love that car because he had that thing for like 10 years. I think he had like I want to say he had a Firebird, but I'm not sure. One says she's never seen tail latest crossing the finish line. Eric owes me a 10-second card with the tail lights. She's never seen tail lights crossing the finish line. No. Oh yeah, I haven't seen Fast and the Furious so long. I was completely lost. Plus, it's like after the first movie, it wasn't even about cars anymore. Like because and let's be honest, the first movie was a ripoff off what was the movie with Patrick Swayze and um like it was literally just a ripoff of that movie, and then they just swapped extreme games with cars, and it was the exact same movie. Undercover agent going to blah 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 blah. It was like the exact same movie. It's just if you switched out extreme games for uh cars, that was Fast and the Furious. But after the first movie, it was no longer about the cars. I mean, the cars were still in it, but it wasn't about the cars. It was about them pulling heists and all this. Was like once they went to outer space, it was just like I'm like nah. Like the movie, the franchise literally became a parody of itself. And the funny thing was, before it got that ridiculous, they were already making fun of it on Family Guy and American Dad and stuff like that, having them doing all sorts of crazy stuff and being kind of homoerotic. And I'm like, yeah, this ain't too far from the truth. And then 2 years later goes by, and they're literally doing stuff that you would have thought they would have only made fun of in cartoons. Like they went into outer space in cars. I'm like, really? They went to outer space in cars. They had a car leaping out of the tallest building in Dubai. I'm like, really? You got like so now we're jumping cars between buildings in Dubai. And let's not forget they went to the North Pole. They had the cars in the North Pole fighting submarines and shit. Like, I couldn't take their franchise seriously. Like, everything after the fourth movie was just ridiculous. I mean, the only thing that made it still a little bit cool was when a Rock first joined, and that was only for those first two movies he was in. After that, it still was ridiculous, even with the Rock in it. Like he couldn't save the franchise for me, although it's still been doing well. Uh, Eric says when I was in high school, I had a friend who dad built a '57 Chevy Bel Air. Whoa, beautiful car. It was white and orange. White and orange? Wait, white and orange. So did it look like the Dukes of Hazzard car? Just the good old boys. Never mean and no harm. By the way, that's on my eBay wish list. If anyone wants to help contribute to that, I am. I want to buy the old. What, what what was the name of the Hazard vehicle? I had it as a kid. I had the toy, which is funny. How does a black Muslim kid with a pro black Muslim mom get a Dukes of Hazard vehicle and a Dukes of Hazzard big wheel? My favorite big wheel was the Knight Rider one. But before the Knight Rider one, I had the Dukes of Hazzard big wheel. I can't remember what was the name of it. What was the name of it, guys? The Dukes of Hazzard car. Oh, look like them Duke boys back in trouble again. I used to love that show, man. Now, all my pro blackity black friends. Oh, that's why you like that now, because you watched Dukes of Hazzard. Like, I can see them saying something stupid like that now. All these O'Shea Duke Jackson type dudes and uh, Umar Johnson's Prince of Pan Africanism bullshit and pro blackity blacks. Like, you shouldn't have been watching Dukes of Hazzard. Your mom's wrong to let you watch Dukes of Hazzard. Whatever. But yeah, I like the show. It was funny. It was not. I can't remember them actually saying anything racist in the show, nor implying the racist. The only thing racist about the show was the Confederate flag on the car. That was literally it. And again, if it was so racist, why did my pro black Muslim mom buy me a car, the toy? Mind you, I didn't even ask for it. I was just it was just given to me when I was like 5 or 6, whatever. And then later on, I got Knight Rider when that became a show, because that was the shit. And if you press down on the on the bumper, it actually made it actually would have Kit saying different stuff. Woo, woo, woo. Yes, Michael, we must get out of here. Eric says I would ride to parties with him and it wasn't able to pick up girls, but the fellas love the car. Well, we don't want to pick up the guys though. But the funny thing is the stuff. I've seen this pointed out on a lot of like IG, with a lot of IG pages, like for like like Muay Thai and combat sports and stuff like that. It's like these guys, or like the gym bros, and it's like they're getting buff, learning to fight and all this sort of stuff, thinking it's going to impress girls. But the only people to come up to them and impress like other dudes, they're like, "Yo, bro, you looking swole," blah blah blah. And that's actually true. I've never had a girl like approach me because I was looking buff, because I was buff last year, not so much this year. I was buff last year, and literally had some dude approach me with his girl in a supermarket. He's like, "Yo, you looking buff." I was like, "Thanks." At first, I took it weirdly because I thought he was trying to, I thought he was just trying to, I thought he was being sarcastic. And my friend was like, "You're too cynical." I'm like, "Yeah, my bad." Because I had on a wife beater, a little muscle shirt, so I didn't, when because I'm not so narcissistic that I'm checking my gains. I didn't realize that I had swelled up a little bit last year. So, but yeah, it would be guys that will compliment you before the ladies. Although I did notice, I did have a few looks in the gym whenever I wore a wife beater. And again, I wasn't like swole or anything. I wasn't like Joey Swole or anything like that. But I had a nice little figure cut, and because I remember, because people always, cause I've always hear a lot of guys saying, you know, at least online. I don't know about in real life, but I've always hear a lot of guys complaining online that they get shut down in the gym, so they don't try to do that. But I mean, I didn't try to hit on anyone since again I'm married, but I've approached people and just talked to them, and they were just the girls were nice. Like one of them was like blushing because I was just simply asking her. I forgot what I asked her. Uh, oh, no, I think she approached me. I can't remember. I was like, "Are you using such and such or whatever?" Or no, I think she asked me, and I was like, "No, I'm such and such." And then we were just, conversing, and she was smiling and blushing. I'm like, "Cool." I'm self conscious because like I just finished, my workout, so I'm thinking I'm like funky and sweaty. But even though I do, here's a secret for you guys: you go to the gym, have a have a cologne or scented oil that you wear for the gym. Don't, and like Kevin Samuel said, have different scented um, scents for different things. So you don't wear the same scent for the gym that you wear for the office, and you don't wear the same stuff for the gym or the office that you wear when you going out to like bars and clubs or whatever. So, but yeah, so I have a body oil that I wear just for the gym, and it's not to attract women. It's just because I'm conscious about body odor or whatever. So I guess that worked. The General Lee. Thank you, Moonlit. Yep, the General Lee. So I have that on my eBay list now because, like I've told some of you guys, all my vintage toys and stuff got left behind in Chicago when we moved when I was 13, and except for like the few things that I had at my grandmother's house. Most of that stuff is all that stuff was gone, and then even half of the stuff at my grandmother's house was thrown away. She just tossed that stuff away, and these were all vintage toys. But older people don't have a sense of this of collector's value when it comes to old things. This is why you can old people are the best people to buy like stuff from, like at flea markets or garage sales or whatever, because they often don't know the value of things. Like my mom is still mad at my grandmother because she gave away all these classic jazz albums, like stuff like Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that, that belonged to my grandfather. And I was like, wait, what? And my my mom just rolled her eyes. She's like, yeah, I know. She doesn't know the value of stuff like that. I'm like, apparently not, because I was like, Mom, you know how much that stuff would be worth? She's like, yeah, I know. So, but yeah, Hot Wheels has a few versions. No, I'm not going to get I'm getting the vintage ETRL. Remember, ETRL was sort of like the poor man's Hot Wheels. I want that. Plus, ETRL used to get like the license to the license to like specific franchises, um like I think Hot Wheel has, I don't think ETRL even exists anymore, but Hot Wheels pretty much dominates the market when it comes to die-cast vehicles nowadays, because there's really, other than like low level like lower tier companies, like Hot Wheels pretty much has the monopoly on die-cast vehicles. But back in the day, there was like, you had they had a lot of competition. You had ETRL, you had Matchbox. I think Matchbox is still around though. I think Matchbox is still around. But I think Matchbox was like their biggest competitor back then. Like Hot Wheels was Coke and Matchbox was Pepsi. Then you had ETRL, which was like Dr. Pepper. Then there was some other ones, but those were the main three. And then whatever company made the hotkeys vehicles. Remember the ones with you would put the key in the back of the car and you would press on the key and it would make the car shoot out. I forgot who makes those, but I'm getting one of those too because I remember having that. That was I don't know who the company was for that, but they made a Knight Rider back in the day. So I'm getting the Knight Rider hotkey thing, and then I'm gonna get the ETRL General Lee. So, but like I said, there was a lot of competition for diecast vehicles back then, but now Hot Wheel pretty much monopolizes that whole market. Eric says I met The Rock and Vin Diesel when I was working at an EMS. Oh, so I did a standby at a famous raceway they were filming at. They fed us lobster and shrimp that day. They have been my favorite actors ever since. Oh, I guess so, man. If you feed me my favorite foods, I'm gonna be a loyal I will be a loyal customer ever since. Like I've come across celebrities, but I've never like got to interact with them. Like being right in the face of like people like Foxy Brown, Luke Campbell, Jizza the genius from Wu Tang, Ghostface Killer, um, who else? Buster Rhymes. But I never got to interact with them, unfortunately. So I think it was a reggae guy too. I can't think. I know. I remember there was at least back in the 2000s, there was a guy who was famous in a DC go-go band who lived with us. He was cool as shit. Then the messed up thing was our landlord was trying to ask us to kick him out because he wasn't paying him on time. And we were like, no, if you don't kick him out, you do it. Like, it's like, that's not our responsibility to kick him out. Besides that, we liked him. And it's like, plus, it's like, it was all love because all of us were from Baltimore, but he was from DC. And if you guys know anything about the Baltimore DC rivalry, that's been going on for literally decades. But we love bro. he was cool as shit. He would bring girls to the crib, smash whatever. He was cool. And I didn't. The funny thing is because we're from Baltimore, we didn't know go-go bands like that, so we didn't know that he was like sort of like famous, in the DC go-go circuit. So, what's up, Z Swing? Omar, what's up? He said, yeah, I had that Knight Rider toy. It was so cool. Someone stole it down. Don't get me started on people stealing my stealing my stuff. You're gonna make me start talking about my baseball cards. Moonless says Knight Rider. Damn, I was watching like DuckTales and Fraggle Rock. Well, yeah, because I mean you're a bit younger than I am, so. But Knight Rider, some people caught Knight Rider on its second wave on TV because, well, I watched it on its original run on network television. It was revitalized on USA on the USA network. So a lot of people got into Knight Rider in the 90s because um it was syndicated on USA Network, and they even made a reboot of Knight Rider that aired on USA Network. If you want to know more about that, you can go to the YouTube channel Secret Galaxy. He did a video on Knight Rider. But yeah, they so in its original run, it was on network TV. I think on CBS, I believe. But then like it got the rerun the syndicated reruns aired on the USA network, and then I guess it got so much uh play on that channel that they ended up making a reboot. Not one, sorry, not a reboot. They made a newer version of the Knight Rider, stemming off the original show that was on USA Network. But I think it only lasted one. It may have lasted 2 seasons. But yeah, you might have. But even if you were a millennial, you may have caught Knight Rider on the USA Network in like the early 90s. Or he says most women respond well to confidence and kindness. Yeah, I I think younger people, younger men often lack that confidence because if you live too much online, you're gonna think all women are cruel and mean and vindictive and trying to clown you, and that can happen. But I mean, it helps being attractive. I'll just say that it helps being attractive. Um, if not, and even if you aren't attractive, like you say, confidence and kindness will get you long. Because think about it, if I mean we weren't able to to internet pimp until like the 2000s, right? But until the 2000s, and I mean late 2000s really, but until like the 2000s with like Yahoo Chat and Black Planet and Magente and Asian Avenue and College Club and MySpace and all these other social, all these early social media platforms. Before all that, you had to actually go up to the person to shoot your shot, and and trust me, people weren't more attractive back then than they are now. So guys who were more average in looks could make up for it by confidence and kindness, and I think that's still the case today. Confidence and kindness. Although I will say that I think the dating scene has gotten worse because all these women, because I think a lot of Western women have more unrealistic standards than they did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So the dating scene probably is harder. But again, I'm not that tall, but well, she's Asian, so comparatively, I'm much taller. But yeah, like I said, and my wife's way Asian, but yeah, it's like, I was just confident. I mean, I was just kind. Like, she was asking me something, and we just started chatting. So, like I said, if I were a single man, I probably would have asked her out. She probably would have said yes. Even funnier. So this was at One Planet Fitness, and then that wasn't my regular, but that wasn't my regular gym. So when I went back to my regular gym, I saw this girl who looked like her, and it's not just because she was Asian, because trust me, not all Asians look alike. Like if you've been around a lot of Asians, you know they don't look alike at all. But if you've never been around, yeah, you would think they all look alike. But you can say that for literally any racial group. If you haven't been around those folks, you will say they all look alike. Like black people, if you've never been around black people, they all look alike, even though we look nothing alike. If you've never been around white people, they all look alike. But no, they look nothing alike. Asian people, you would think they all look alike. Again, look nothing alike. Same thing with Indian, Desi people, Pacific Islanders, whatever, Middle Eastern. No, this girl actually looked like her, but that's because people dress kind of similarly in the gym with the type of gym clothes they wear. So I approached this girl. I was like, "Excuse me, didn't I just see you?" I was like, "Didn't I just see you last week at the gym in I said Owens Mills or whatever?" And she just smiled. She's like, "No." She just smiled and laughed. She's like, "Oh no, that's not me." I was like, "Oh my bad." I was like, I think you have a doppelganger." She just, she smiled and walked away. Like she didn't get offended and be like, "Oh, you just think we all look alike, don't you?" She didn't, she didn't take it that way. She was just like, she just smiled and laughed. She's like, "No, that wasn't me." I was like, "Cool." Again, if I were a single man, I would have shoot my shot. But mm. Plus, it helps when you do it solo. Like, don't approach women in groups. You look threatening that way. I think most guys know that or should know that, right? One says I had a Voltron that put together nice, but my cousin stole all my stuff when I was a kid, except the logo, except the Legos. He said I'd fight for Legos. LOL, always grounded growing up. If I had Legos, well, the Legos you could use as weapons anyway. You can put them down on the ground and use them as caltrops. Excuse me, as you know, to injure people's feet. And Legos make natural weapons that way. I didn't have the whole Voltron. I had the Black Lion because he was the leader. Not because he was black, but because he was the leader. Excuse me. Let me drink some water. But plus it was the giant version, so it would have been too expensive to buy all five for the giant robot. It was the giant plastic one, not the smaller die cast metal one. Omar says, "Yeah, Moon. Long time ago, I wish I could go back. There's a lot of men try to feast before the hunt and scare the gazelles away. Yeah, remember? I don't know if you ever saw that movie. What was it called? L.A. I can't remember. It was Sean Penn and the dude from The Godfather. Um, what is that guy's name? Not Al Pacino. I'm talking about the um the guy who played their adopted brother. Uh, his name is on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember. Robert something. I don't remember. But I remember in this movie about cops in L.A. I can't remember. Colors. I think that was named Colors. And he was telling them a story. He was like, the young bull says to the old bull, looking down at a herd of cattle. He's like, "Yeah, let's run down there and get something to F." And the older bull was like, "No, no, no." He said, "We'll take our time, just walk down there and we'll F them all." So, well, says I'll be 43 in weeks. Omar, because I miss all my collectible childhood stuff. I had a Thundercats mailbox and Halloween costume for a 4-year-old. Now all I have is a small T-shirt with just the logos. So they brought back the vintage Halloween outfits. So if people remember the vintage Halloween outfits made by what's that guy's name? Um, so he made all the little Halloween outfits the kids wore in the 80s, the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. You know, the little cheap plastic um outfit that you wore, and then the cheap mask with the attached with the rubber band with the staple. And most people by the end of Halloween, like their little plastic costume they were wearing was probably ripped, or the rubber band popped on their mask. Like most people didn't make it through the entire Halloween with their costume intact. So they were usually, I mean, plus you probably wore it to school for Halloween day. So most people, the costumes didn't make it past Halloween. If it did, you were lucky. But most people, it ripped. It would rip like around the shoulders or around the crotch area by the time you got home that night. But you didn't care because you already had like a bag, maybe two bags full of candy. And then you were just waiting for your parents to check all the candy to make sure it was safe. Because everyone was paranoid that they were going to be like mentally ill people handing out candy that was had razor blades and dangerous drugs in it. And for the most part, no one was trying to poison little kids. Although I remember it was a joke a long time ago on Facebook that a lot of my friends were sharing. They was like looking back at it now, they was like they should have poisoned us. I was like, that's messed up, but it's kind of true. Um, but yeah, no one. Those costumes were great. So I'm buying one. They have so like I said, they brought it back, and they have them now in adult sizes. So there's an adult size um, retro Halloween costume that I'm buying. This a Batman one. Let me get the name of that guy so I can share that with you because some of you might want to look it up for Halloween. It's on my eBay. Give me a second. I'm gonna look that up and then I'm gonna check the rest of these messages too. Give me a second, guys. Um, go to my watch list. Um, see the Batman. I got a vintage Frankenstein that I want to buy as well from the Remco Universal Monsters that came out back in like the 80s. I want one of those because I remember seeing those. They they were already like they were still selling them, but they were no longer like making them by the time I saw them in the stores. And these were usually like when I would see them, they would be somewhere like cheap at like Zayre's. Uh, remember was it called Zayre's? That old department store Zayre's. I would see that like somewhere like Zayre's or Ames, um, or in the supermarket toy section. Usually next to the Halloween stuff. Um, hold up. But yeah, I want to get that because I remember talking about this last time on the live, and I forgot to tell people the name of those vintage costumes. Since, like I said, they brought it back, so now they're like retro. You can buy a retro version of it, not the original ones. I mean, you can still buy the original ones, but those were only made for kids. Whereas the retro ones they have now are actually made for kids or adults, depending on what you want. Because the ones from back in the day, I mean, if you bought those now, like they would probably fall apart because they're like 40 years old. Summary. Check my watch list. Um, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff on my eBay watch list, guys. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna even hold you, as they say today. and I got like a lot of vintage stuff I want to buy on my eBay watch list. Just like I said, if anyone wants to contribute to that, let me know. Oh, and the hotkey thing, it's not called hotkey. It was called the Kid Code Burning Key. I want my vintage GI Joe fridge the Perry. Remember when right when the Chicago Bears were the Super Bowl in 1986, they released that this GI Joe action figure version of fridge the Perry Williams from the Chicago Bears because he was like really famous back then. But you could only get him through mail order, and I never got it. I don't think I ever asked my parents to get it for me because they probably would have, but um, or maybe they wouldn't because it was mail order. So they they were pretty good in getting me toys, but not anything that was mail order. Also, it was those classic vintage Halloween costumes were the Ben Cooper Halloween costumes. So if you guys remember, like I said, all the cheap plastic costumes from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, where you had the mask that was attached with the little rubber band with the staple on each side, and the little um like the little costume overalls that you would put on over your clothes and walk around in it. So like I said, they were probably split by sometime during trick or treat. Like I don't. It was rare. It was rare that my costume did not have some sort of rip in it from walking around in it, because somewhere in that day you were gonna get a rip. Like we had a Halloween party at this church we used to go to before we stopped going to that church. They used to throw a Halloween party in a haunted house. So that was when we would dress up. Then also, like I said, at school for Halloween Day, they would let us dress up in our costumes. So most of us dressed up in our costumes in school. And if you miraculously survive school without your costume getting ripped, it got ripped sometime that evening while trick or treating. But those used to be called those were the Ben Cooper Halloween costumes. And like I said, they have retro ones now where you can buy them in adult sizes, which is pretty freaking cool. So I'm gonna get the Batman one. And I've been meaning to buy it for like the past 3 years, but I've always ended up buying something else instead. So I'm gonna try to get that. If not this Halloween, probably sometime later this year. But yeah, the Ben Cooper costumes. And a lot of like places like um uh comic book places might sell them too. Moonless's lunchbox. He goes not mailbox, but that would be cool. Gave me an idea for a new mailbox though. Yes, Matchbox is still around. My gamer friend. He's the lead singer of Bludgeon. I haven't heard of Bludgeon. Yeah, I thought Matchbox was still around because they didn't just make the vehicles. They also made like action figures too. Like they made like the Voltron. I know they made Voltron. They made can't remember what else they made, but I know they definitely did Voltron. But I wasn't sure if they were still around because I thought maybe they might have been bought out because in the past 20 years, Hasbro has bought out like so many toy franchises. It's ridiculous. Like really the only competitor to Hasbro in the toy market right now is Mattel. So I would say Hasbro now is the Coke of of toy companies. Mattel is Pepsi, and McFarlane McFarlane toys from the guy who does Spawn. I would say McFarlane is like Dr. Pepsi. But then you got stuff even better, like you have Hot Toys, but those cost so freaking much. You got Hot Toys and Mezco and NECA. Um, and others. Like the toy collectors market is thriving right now because all of us Gen Xers and older millennials are nostalgic for that stuff. Almost as damn won't understand what was always in a rush to grow up. Man, I wish I was a kid again. Yeah, my nephew's gonna find that out. Like he's 17 now, so he's in such a rush to prove that he's a man. He's gonna realize once he turns 18 that he's gonna wish he stayed 17 longer because all the ripping and running he's doing right now, it's not catching up to him because he's still a minor. He's a minor who thinks he's a man, but once he actually is a man, he's gonna then be wanting to. He's gonna be wishing he could still be treated as a minor again. That's all I'll say about that. I'm not gonna get too much into his business, but all that ripping and running right now, it's all good right now when you're a minor and you're still in high school. Assuming he would, well, not going to put his business out there, but once he turns 18, it's not going to be sweet anymore. He's going to wish he was still a minor, trying, cosplaying as a man. Melissa's Ghostface would be fun to pick his brain. Me, I just saw him like at a college performance. Like I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get the rap to chat to him. Like it was like Ghostface, Jizza, Foxy Brown. It wasn't Luke? I didn't. I'm trying to remember. No, I saw. No, Luke was on stage. So I never got to come across him specifically. Same thing with Buster Rhymes. He was like on stage, but these were like in very small venues. So you're close enough to the performers, to the artists that they can interact with you. So um, Melissa says, Omar, I'm glad being an adult and seeing how cool stuff is now, so I can appreciate it more. The only good thing about being an adult is now I can get the stuff I wanted as a kid with my own money and not have to ask anyone. And now, and plus, now once I hit my late once I hit my mid 30s, and now I'm in my late 40s. Now I don't need it. Now I can not only have the money to buy the stuff that I liked as a kid, but now I'm old enough to not care what people think about it, about me getting that stuff. Because in my 20s, I would have been self conscious about it, which is why I didn't get my Power Master Optimus Prime until like 7 years ago. Because in my 20s, I wanted it. Like my friend even had one when we were living together, and I was like, "Let me buy it from you." He was like, "Well, get it off of eBay." He said, "Bid for it." I was like, "Why would I bid for it? You got it right there." He's like, "No, just bid for it." I didn't know he was asking me at the time. I didn't realize he wanted me to bid for it just because it'd have been easier for him to, because he wanted to rack up as much money as possible. But I'm like, because I was like, that's inconvenient because I didn't have an eBay account at the time. I was like, dude, I don't even use eBay. I was like, so now he's like, just go. So I never did it. So I don't know if he sold it or not. I think he did, because he was like, yeah, if you, he said, if you, bid for it or whatever, he's, I'll just hand it right over to you here in the house. And I'm like, why don't you just sell it to me here? He wanted me to bid for it, but now I get it now. Like he was trying to get the highest price he could for it, even though he literally had it right there in his bedroom. But that's like after that was like the only nerdy, like little geeky thing that I wanted back then in my 20s, because I was too involved trying to be cool for the girls at the time. So, but once you hit your stride in your 30s and 40s, when you're just confident in your own skin, women actually find you more attractive because you're not trying to impress them. So maybe that was the secret to what why I issued confidence in the gym, because I wasn't trying to impress anyone. Eric says my favorite interaction with a celebrity was with Alfonso Rubio, uh, Carlton from Fresh Prince. I met him at the same raceway, but a different standby. He hung out with us in our ambulance. Oh, that's cool. I, I know there's some celebrity. I just can't remember who it is. I did interact with some celebrity. I just It'll come to me eventually. Whom I interact with. I just can't think of it right now. Uh, Eris is just chatting it up with us and extremely nice and fun to talk with. Yeah, he seemed like he's like genuinely personable from what I've seen him, like how he talks with people on, on like interviews and talk shows. He seems like he's like he doesn't like have a big head. I think plus, because he gets a lot of flack in the black community for being whitewashed or whatever, but people say the same thing about me that I'm whitewashed. So I don't really care. But um he he definitely seems approachable. The only thing he said he's not approachable about is when people try to demand that he dance for them. He's like, I'm not your puppet. Like I'm like I think that's the only time when people said they didn't like Alfonso because they tried to ask him to do the Carlton dance, and he's like, I'm not your little puppet. I'm not going to do your little dance because he was on I forgot which talk show he was on, but he was doing a dance, but he was doing his own thing, and they kept trying to get him to do the Carlton. He was like, I'm not doing the Carlton. I'm doing this. Someone says, yeah, Eric, yeah, I hear a lot of good things about him being a cool in person. So yeah, he's awesome. Someone said, yeah, Moon was kind of is is cool as a kid in my in kindergarten. I had a kit card that would talk and headlights would move by pressure button. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was the night. That was I think that was the original Knight Rider 2000 vehicle. It was plastic. It came with a Michael Knight action figure who stood at like 5 foot. I mean, sorry, 5 inches tall. So it had this realistic looking Michael um, Michael Knight action figure played by David Hasselhoff. Of course, he had his glorious curly mullet with with the um, with the turtleneck and the black leather jacket with the blue jeans with the big Western buckle and the boots. It looked just like him off the show. And like I said, you were pressed down on the front on the bender. It was like a little pressure button, and he would talk. Melissa's kids would never understand. We had to handwrite a crush letter and hand it to a girl and actually talk. Yeah, I did. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember that, but I was saying this Latina girl I had this huge crush on when I was 17. She wouldn't like. She didn't say she didn't like me. She said we couldn't go together because I first hit on her friend originally. I was like, yeah, I hit on Rosemary, but that was her real name. They won't know who, but anyway, it's safe. But yeah, I hit on Rosemary, but she was just kind of, you know, it's not that she didn't like me, but she was just too slow to react for me. And then in the meantime, I started crushing on her friend Christina, who was her best friend. And I guess out of loyalty to her best friend, she wouldn't date me. And I was persistent, and so one of my homeboys, who is Latino, he wrote a love letter for me in Spanish. And so I didn't have no idea what he actually wrote because it was completely in Spanish, and I handed it to her. And if, I think a day or so later, she like I think we either talked on the phone or in the bus, on the school bus or whatever. And she's like, did you? She's like, did you really write that? I was like, well, I tried to play it off. I was like, well, I had someone write it in Spanish for me, but that was really my words. So again, I don't know what he actually said, but she was like, that was so nice. She was like, if you didn't talk to my friend, I would get with you. I'm like, damn. Oh, she was cute. I'm surprised I didn't end up with a Latina like wife or girlfriend. Seriously. Yep. Everyone thinks everyone thinks white women are black men's kryptonite. It is not. Latinas are black men's kryptonite. Trust and believe it. Kevin Samuel said this 3 years ago. He was like, all these black women are worried about white women taking taking their men. They was like, no, it's not. She's like, you don't. She's like, y'all worrying about the wrong one. It's like y'all don't need to be worrying about white women taking all the black men. He's like, y'all need to be worrying about y'all need to be worried about Maria. He's like, you need to be worried about. He's like, y'all need to be worried about these Latina and Hispanic women. He's like, those are the women the brothers want, and that's true. Most of the passport bros go to Latin America. Like some of us go, to East Asia, like the Philippines and Thailand and Japan. But those are the guys who can afford to live overseas for an extended time or permanently. Where but most guys can't afford to live overseas indefinitely or take, trips that last like months on end. So most of them head to Latin America, particularly to Colombia, the DR, and and Brazil, and those women are way more beautiful than the average chick here in America. Like the women don't know that when you go to Colombia and you're coming through customs, it's like back to back black men. It's black men like back to back in Colombia coming from the airport. And a few black women who have traveled to Colombia have started telling other black women, like, girls, the reason you can't get no guys is because all of them are going to Colombia, and it's true. Like my cousin is there like every other month. He's either in Colombia or he's in DR, and he's visited other Latin American countries too. And he plans to go to more. I keep trying to convince him to come with me to Asia, but he was saying he don't know if he can take that much time off from work. And that's the case for a lot of passport bros. A lot of them can't leave work for that long, so they usually can go somewhere like Colombia and DR because you can hit Colombia and DR for the and spend the weekend there, come back, and then go right back again the next weekend or next month or whenever. You can go there but you can go there like on a monthly basis at least. And a lot of these guys, they will save up their money and they won't go out because they're gonna save their money and go out when they're over there. So, but I always said, you know, they they need to be like, I mean, just like Kevin Samuels, they need to be worried about Maria. Not, they worrying about Becky. They need to be worried about Maria. Although Becky got it going on too. I'm not going to front. Becky got it going on. Ling Ling got it going on. Priya got it going on. Um, who else? Um, what's a common Middle Eastern name for a woman? Uh, I can't think of one right now. But yeah, but definitely Latinas or black men's kryptonite, not Becky. Becky's cool, but it's Maria that really gets black guys going. Um, and like I said, I when she told me she would have went with me if I didn't talk to her friend after handed her that love letter, I knew that my boy, I know my boy did me a solid. He definitely did me a solid. Or my first girlfriend, I met her when I was living in Philly, but then we moved back from Philly. We moved from Philly to Delaware, and the crazy thing was, so we moved to Delaware from Philly, but my mother was still working in Baltimore, so she still had me going to school in Baltimore. So half half of the week we were still living at my grandmother's house in Baltimore, and then half the week we were back at our house in Delaware. And so she and I had a long distance relationship because I had asked her out when I was living in Philly, but she didn't say yes until I had moved out of Philly after that Christmas. And so we stayed in contact through long distance calls and love letters. We were like, even when I moved to the DC area, like we were still writing each other love letters because we briefly broke up, and that was not because of anything bad, but because she had moved to New Jersey. She had moved to Willingboro, New Jersey, and I was like, yeah, this is just getting too hard. So I kind of just broke it up. But then we briefly got back together when I moved to Silver Spring, to the DC suburbs. And again, we were doing the love letter thing. And I remember my father, no, I remember my stepmom telling my father that she thought we were going to end up getting married, but yeah, that didn't happen. Anyway, sorry, that was a long, sorry guys, I know that was a long tirade. Sorry about that. Omar says, oh yeah. Mona says, yeah, we had to ask, would you be my girlfriend or can I be your boyfriend? LOL. We were just little puppy dogs, but we earned it. We didn't have a phone to shoot cute emoji texts in class. No, I mean, we were on the phone, but, you know, if you never seen the movie The Wood, watch the movie The Wood. That was such an honest portrayal of black teenagers um, in like the late 80s, early 90s, like the whole Gen X, the Gen Xers, like asking girls out. Um, then, you know, having, then you had to, get asking a girl for a number and then you had, it was a certain boldness you had to have in calling someone. Because when you called a girl, you didn't know who was going to answer the phone. Who, luckily, I never, as far as I can remember, I've never encountered like anyone rude on their end. Like, who the hell is this? Like, it was never like that. Like on like house party or anything like that. The- Almost anytime I called someone, the parent or whoever answered was nice to me, and it's probably because I was articulate and polite, and I was just like, "Hi, my name is such and such. Is Charmaine there or whatever, or I say, may I speak? May I please speak with so and so? And he was like, sure, baby, hold on. So I never encountered any nasty stuff. The nasty stuff happened on my end because I would be on the phone, and then one of you know how black, well, some of you know how black moms are. They like, get get off the phone. I need it. Just fucked your whole swag up. Or don't forget the AOL era. You get on the like, mm, don't get me started with that. But yeah, one says unless we was in detention, then we didn't give a f. We wild out. So there goes color traps. Yeah. Mona says yeah. See, we know how to love good memories and cherish stuff from them because nostalgia and the value of it. Yeah, so right, the sharp plastic mask and rubber bands and staples, they were awful, but we loved it. Yeah, from the Ben Cooper classic Halloween costumes. Like I said, they brought them back. They for like for retro, like they're like because they're not the original vintage ones. Although, like I said, you can buy them, but you can't wear them because they were only for kids for one and two. They're 40 years old, so that plastic would just probably is probably degraded now. But they make retro ones for adult sizes and children sizes that you can buy uh, either online or some comic book stores will sell them, or maybe what's the Halloween store everyone goes to during this time of year? I think they probably sell them too. Can't remember the name of. Is it just called Halloween something or costume something? I forgot the name. You guys know what I'm talking about. The famous Halloween costume store that's open all year round and was got big at one point now and it's like going out of business. Almost as I remember my friend had a Michael Jackson custom, the mask with the red jacket. I remember in the second grade, I had the Ben Cooper He-Man Halloween costume. And so I was thinking I'm the shit. I had you couldn't tell me nothing. I had my He-Man stuff. Um and He-Man was still hot at the time. I had just turned 7 and I had just got my first He-Man toy a year ago when I turned 6. So I'm still deeply into He-Man. I'm 7, had my costume, and then this white kid shows up to school with a custom made He-Man. I was like, oh man, like his mom had made him the blonde hair with the bangs. He had like a custom made outfit for him. I was like, man, I was jealous. Because I was like, man, he looks so much better. Plus, being white, he actually looked more like He-Man than I did. But even though I'm wearing a mask, so it doesn't matter. But he wasn't wearing a mask. It was just his actual face with a He-Man wig on that his mom made with a custom made like outfit. It was. I was like, damn. The, like people, I know a lot of kids didn't like when their parents made them like little custom made costumes, but the custom made outfits were way better than the Ben Cooper outfits. The Ben Cooper Halloween costumes were just for parents that didn't have time to make you an outfit. It was like, all right, take you to Toys R Us and buy whatever costume you want. But I used to love it because you would go to Toys R Us and all the Halloween stuff was right there in the front as soon as you entered the store. And it was like just hundreds of costumes. And they all had that little funny plastic smell to it. I can't describe it, but they all had that little that that smell to it. It smelled like, I don't know, like medical. Smell like the it smelled like those medical rubber gloves. I'm gonna say, yeah, that's tough to Omar. I said, man, I loved Halloween as a kid. We would make our own costumes. One year, my friends and I were the Ginyu Force. Oh, Dad, you took it back. The Ginyu Force, and we made our costumes out of football pads, mops, and cardboard that we painted. Dang, see, I wasn't that creative. I didn't know how to. I never thought of making my own costume. Like I said, I just wanted one of those Ben Cooper costumes because like every kid got a Ben Cooper costume. But like I said, when I was living in Baltimore right before I moved to Chicago, when I turned 7, is I remember going to Cross Country Elementary in Park Heights, Baltimore. Showed up in my He-Man costume on Halloween day, thinking I was the thinking I was the shit. So I saw that kid with his own custom made He-Man. I'm like, man. Now, it was a couple of kids when I was in Chicago that had custom made costumes, but when I was in Chicago, almost everyone was wearing a Ben Cooper magazine of some sort. Even the girls. The girls were wearing them. The guys were wearing them. Like I rarely saw people with custom made outfits like I did back in Maryland. So I don't know why. Unless it's where you live, Moon. I'm in Atlanta. Almost says I grew up near the Navy base in St. Mary's, not far from you, but I'm in Thailand with the missus. So still love Halloween. I plan to complain. Complain. I think you mean dress up as Scarecrow breaking out of Arkham Asylum and fingers as yellow syringes with rope, mask, hat, full fit, handmade one day. I swear. Yeah, this is what I call spooky season. Like the the beginning of the school year or Labor Day week or you know the Labor Day up until Thanksgiving is all spooky season from my reckoning. Some people put it all the way as early as July 5th. Like some people say everything from like July the 5th up and up until like uh November is spooky season. Uh I can't, yeah. That's a stretch to say July and August are spooky season. I'll give you the end of August. Like I said, whenever the start of the school season begins, I think that is spooky season. But July 5th, I think that's a little too early. But like I said, I love Halloween now because it's more for. I think Halloween has is more for adults now. That's why we have spooky season. Like we got like 2.5 months to enjoy pumpkin spice. If you like pumpkin spice, I know the women do especially. Um, enjoy horror horror films. Um, Halloween parties, buying bulk size of cheap candy, um, and kind of just enjoying the fall season um, for adults that for for like sort of like a holiday season that caters more to adults than to kids. Like Halloween still caters to kids because trick or treating and all that sort of stuff. But I it's like unlike Christmas, I think you can enjoy Halloween without family, and I think that's why people don't get depressed around Halloween season like they would like around Christmas, because around Christmas is all about family or spouse and all that sort of stuff. So people can get depressed around that time of the season. No one really gets, you don't really hear people getting depressed around spooky season because you can celebrate that solo. Like you can just, sit down and watch your favorite horror films, you know, all that sort of stuff. So spooky season caters to adults, particularly single adults, whereas Christmas is more for family and children. So if you don't have children or family, that can be depressing for some people. Halloween season, spooky season, you don't need children, don't need family. And then, like I said, or if you do like the sight of children, then you can give them trick or treat candy. I remember was it last year? I think yeah, it was like no, it's not last. I don't think it was last. No, 2 years ago. I think. I think these kids were the last to stop by our house for trick or treat. So I just gave them a ton of candy. And they was like, "Oh man, you got the good candy." He's like, "You guys are cool," because I gave them more since we didn't have like they were like probably the last kids to come around, and we had like this gave them like the Snickers and all that sort of stuff. So he was like, "Oh, you guys got the good candy." He was like he and his brothers or whoever they were smiling. The mom was just out there cheesing because she knows how little kids are. So I definitely want to do trick or treating in the Philippines because we live in this gated community in the Philippines, and the kids go trick or treating. And I was surprised because trick or treat is not a big thing in the Philippines. Because I mean, let's face it, most people are too poor to trick or treat or think about trick or treating. Like most people are just worrying about day to day getting by. So not too concerned about trick or treat, but um, yeah, man. But in that gated community, they were all trick or treating, dressed up in this costume, and it was this little girl that was so adorable. I know my wife wanted that one of the kids so bad. Seeing this little cute little girl, she was dressing up Bumble. I may have shared it on here on my YouTube wall post. I think I think I may have shared that last year on my wall post, which you'll have to do a little bit digging, scrolling all the way down the post, the wall. Um, but it was this cute, tiny little Filipina girl in this little bumblebee outfit. My wife was like, "Oh, she's so cute." Almost as okay, Moon. Yeah, that's why they're worth so much money. But yeah, the Ben Cooper costumes. Moon says Hasbro selling Boggle, Monopoly, and Battleship 3-in-1 game for PS5. By the way, he said, "Hey, I should invest like $30 in Hasbro now." That you said that they pull out like February after Christmas sales. Mm, well, I guess. I mean, Hasbro's been around so long. They might be a blue chip stock. I haven't even checked. Hasbro, um, yeah, they've been around since what I want to say like the 50s, 60s. They might be considered a blue chip. Well, they might actually. I don't think they have blue chip stock, but they I think they are a safe company to invest in. Not every company that's been around for a long time is a blue chip company, though. Melissa says I had a crush on Foxy when I was like 14. And when I saw her in person, she was small. She was cute. She was like my age. Now, he said, "Man, I could do a podcast with you about that and experiences." I keep asking, let's do a podcast together. Um, when you got time. I'm also trying to do one with my brother-in-law, but he's worried because he has a podcast channel up with he and some friends, but he was saying that he was worried because their English wasn't very great. So we're trying to see if we there's a workaround for that. Melissa's damn autocorrect. I'm saying I could do a whole topic on America women types. Oh, and the version of them that came from and was raised from home country. He said giant differences. The spectrum is too enormous. Pause. Melissa says, I don't know if it's just me either, but Canadian women are extremely attractive lately, and I'm not usually into long term with Western raised women. They're too much like American women to me, so to me it would be just the same as pursuing an American woman. It's just that it would be long distance. But Canadian women to me it's pretty much the same as American women, unless they're like from overseas. Like I dated one Canadian woman, but she was from Quebec, so that was a whole it was like a whole different she had a whole different vibe with her. She was from Quebec, but her family was from Guyana in South America, and you could tell like she was like mixed, like she was like black and Indian. You know, she Kamala 3.0, but much cuter. And she was really nice too. I don't know how I was I was supposed to go up there. I remember I was gonna drive up there once, just drive all the way up through New York on up to Quebec, and I never did. I should have. Not necessarily, not necessarily just to meet her, but just to go to Canada and have that, and see Quebec, because I heard Quebec sort of has like a European feel to it. So, Roblex says I'm back. Melissa's my first girlfriend. Contrarian told me I was her boyfriend. By the way, she was the toughest and cutest black girl in middle school. She bullied me to be her boyfriend. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I love the girl too. Remind me to tell you about middle school in Florida back in the day sometime. He had a smell of the Toys R Us stores back then. I don't remember being the whole store. It was just the costumes had the, this the costumes had this weird latex smell to them, like the smell of like I said like uh, like medical gloves. I usually get as fire to go as Ginyu Force with the boys on pads, but hold on. No, who was the raccoon? Whoever went as oh Ra- raccoon, kick him out your friend group. See, I don't remember too much about Ginyu Force. I didn't really watch that. I was all about Voltron, Robotech, and Transor Z when I was a kid. Like those were my first animes that I watched was Voltron, both the Lion Force and the Vehicle Force, which only lasted one season, Robotech, and Transor Z. Um, yeah, those were probably the first anime that I watched. There was some other stuff that I saw, but those were less memorable, and I only didn't, and most of them I didn't even remember till I start watching the guy from Secret Galaxy talk about those lesser known animes from the early 80s. He said, yeah, last week of August is cutting it close. September till December. I said, go all out with horror themes, everything. I wouldn't say December. I well, like I said, I think everyone has a different view of how long spooky season lasts. Like I said, some people say from July the 5th up until like November 1st is spooky season. For me, it goes from, like I said, the beginning of the school year, whether that's late August or early September, all the way up to like Thanksgiving. To me, that is spooky season. After Thanksgiving, then it's all Christmas season, and everything before Thanksgiving is spooky season. Um, Starting from the beginning of school year or Labor Day, whichever happens first. Uh, but it's kind of subjective. Like people just know it's basically based around Halloween. And I don't even. I mean, I've been watching a lot of horror movies these past few years just because there's a lot on Netflix to catch up on, and now on Tubi, some old stuff. But I don't really watch a lot of stuff. I used to watch also some vintage horror on AMC because they would have all the Stephen King stuff. But I've watched that stuff so many times, so it's nice to watch some newer um, stuff on Netflix, like the all the horror movies coming from like Indonesia and Thailand and the Philippines and Japan, and as well as see some old slasher films from the 70s and 80s on Tubi that I never saw as a kid because I was too scared to watch them. He said, Melissa says, I'm not sure. I'll ask around, see if anyone may know someone invested in Hasbro. I know one who owns a lot of shares of Blizzard. I think he's set for life. I wouldn't go by people who own it. I would go by looking it up online, like what is their prospectus, who are who are famous and like what sort of like high level investors are involved with Hasbro. Like, is it part of Warren Buffett's prospectus with um Hathaway? Was it so? Anyway, I'm about to go. It's 1 o'clock. My voice is almost gone, and it's late. I'm surprised I made it this long. Pause. But yeah, I'm about to go. See, I understand I'm craving something fresh and good as the thriller horror movie. All right, fellas. I'll see you guys later. Thinking of if I want to eat some fruit snacks, so I'm gonna save it till I get up. Dilemmas. All right, take it easy. Thanks.